We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. This is Are You Serious Sports? We hope that you guys are making it a good one. We know that we are as well. It's been a long time. You know, we have on Mr. Warren Sapp, and, it takes us a little while to come back. Bad weather in the state of Louisiana has kept us out for the last couple of days. But we are back. We are back. We got a great show this in store for you this morning. LSU head baseball coach Paul Mainieri gets his 1,500th win. We'll talk about that. I know a lot of us are aggravated with Paul Mainieri right now. But regardless, 1,500 wins. He set only 6 other coaches besides Paul Mainieri have achieved that status. So congratulations to Coach Paul Mainieri. They do tie the series last night. Long night. Finally, LSU was able to break through in the 13th. So we'll continue to talk about that a little bit. Ed Orgeron. I know a lot of you saw the post. Ed Orgeron is under attack again from these Rudy absolute poos. The Rudy-ist of pootiest is after Ed Orgeron again. So I normally am chill on a Saturday morning, but I've been waiting a day and a half, 2 days to absolutely tee off on this one. You're not going to want to miss that because this one's actually got me really pissed off on a Saturday morning. We will talk about that as well. Hashtag Ask Blake. As we do every Saturday, we bring up all of your comments into this show, and we talk about them pretty much at length. That is pretty much the show on Saturdays. That is pretty much the show as I sip on my coffee. So put it in there, hashtag Ask Blake, and we'll get to it. Let's get to a couple of these before we get started. Shannon Williams says, and we are live. Chris Barnhill says, let's go. Corey Kaye says, good morning, bud. Listening while working the flood down in the bayou. Okay, I got you. Glad you got some service down there in the bayou. I think that's more impressive than anything. Blaine Viator says, good morning, AYS Nation. We are live. Let's go. And Dylan Landry says, let's go. Let's get a couple more of these, and then we'll get started. Chris Barnhill says, you know what? Let's table this one. Let's table this because we're about to get into it. So let's do that. Let's do that. All right, guys. We got to pay some bills around here on this Saturday morning, and none better than our good friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you guys to go and spend all of your money. I shouldn't say all of your money because you know what? You don't have, come on. It is the best way for sports online gambling, right? BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, odds, and updates. It's the best way for you to place your sporting bets, and it's free to sign up with the new litigation in the state of Louisiana coming through in the next couple of weeks and possibly at about a month at max. We're going to be having online sports gambling. Guys, go over to betonline.ag. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be using it at AYS for everything that it is that we do for sports betting. When it comes to online mobile app, we'll be doing segments and things like that in reference to the online gambling now that it's going to be probably more than likely legal in the state of Louisiana. So before it is, guys, go to betonline.ag to sign up. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. The one thing I hate the most is when these things don't play. These stupid Rudy Poos, I don't know. I got to figure that one out. These ads. Chris Barnhill says, hashtag Ask Blake, congrats to Paul on win number 1,500. Best wishes on retirement, Paul. Okay. Is there any smoke to the Sully rumors? There was. I think there still is. I think they still talk to him a little bit. And if so, what are your thoughts? I don't want Kevin O'Sullivan. I think you're replacing Paul Mainieri with Kevin O'Sullivan. You're replacing Paul Mainieri with Paul Mainieri, right? What has Kevin O'Sullivan done that's better than Paul Mainieri? Look, Kevin O'Sullivan's had a crap ton of talent. Even some would say, and don't ridicule me here. Some would argue because of what you're seeing in the major leagues from guys who played at Florida. I think they have 3 starting pitchers in a rotation in the major leagues right now. Brady Sigler being one of them. So, I mean, he just hasn't won more than you would have wanted. Now, he is in a division with Tim Corbin, but, I mean, LSU's in a conference with Tim Corbin. Look, I think that we also need to be a little realistic, too. Like, we do need to be a little realistic about Paul Mainieri at times. In reference to this, Kevin O'Sullivan doesn't have more SEC titles than Paul. He does, and look, neither does Tim Corbin. By the way, you know what's crazy is Vandy only has 3 total SEC tournament wins ever in their history. That's crazy to think about after all the success Vandy's had in the last couple of years. I mean, yeah, they won in 2019, but guys, they don't win the tournament. They have some outright wins, but LSU has shown that they do better in the tournament. With that being said, though, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Kevin O'Sullivan. I would rather Tony Vitello, the head coach at Tennessee. I'm just not a fan of Kevin O'Sullivan. I mean, he does have some success, but he's also had a crap ton of talent in Florida. And when you have that kind of talent, you should win more, especially when it comes in the rotation. Marvin Mackey says, WTF, what is going on? If you're talking about the Ed Orgeron slander, let's get a couple questions, then we'll talk about that. Robert Plaisant says, good morning, all. Good morning, Robert. Kenny says, Kenny is listening while working. Okay. Kenny's talking to himself or about himself in the third person. I dig that, Kenny. Caesar, my Caesar. Kenny says 2019 still haunts these SEC coaches. It does. We're about to get into that. Trust me, the Rufino's rant is about to get teed off. I promise you. Derek Street says, good morning, Blake. Good morning, sir. How are you? Mark Allen says, can we jump the start? Can we jump the start, please? I've got to get back to work. All right. 2 more, and then we'll get to it. Corey Kaye says, ask Blake, with the addition of Pig from Nichols, how better is LSU's D? Not much service, bro. I mean, it's not light years ahead. I think it's a good depth play, guy that can play some special teams, but I'm not trying to trash the kid, but it's just depth. I mean, he's not going to come in here and be a starter. Adam says, ask Blake, what a performance by the bullpen. That's true. Now that A&M has nothing to play for and LSU does, today we will see what they're about. You know what's interesting about that, Adam, is you usually get one of 2 teams, right? Like this is A&M season. Like this is the rest of the A&M season. So do they come out and say, hey, this is the last game we'll play at Texas A&M, and they want to go out with a bang? This LSU rest some guys. I mean, I hope Paul doesn't, because you need as many wins as you can to get into a regional. So it's going to be a really interesting game. I agree with you there. So a lot of people have been asking, so let's get into it. So I need you guys to do me a favor, hit the like, hit the share to some Facebook groups, because it's about to go down. And let me say this too. I might have to get up because I do have my little man here. I do have Ben. I am watching Ben today. So he is currently eating breakfast. He's good. But just in case I have to get up, you know why. And when people come and say, well, where'd Blake go? He went to go get Ben. Let me say this. I really want to come out here and get really pissed off, and I probably will work myself up to that. And I want to start off by saying this too. I do think that Brody Miller is a good dude. If you don't know who Brody Miller is, he's a writer for the Athletic. I think he's a good dude. I think he makes some good points sometimes. I'm not trying to trash Brody Miller. So when I say all of this, this is not a personal shot. This is not me trying to attack Brody Miller. I don't know the kid well enough to say any which way. He seemed to have been pretty fair in the past on things. So I'm not trying to rip upon and call out the character of Mr. Brody Miller, 23-year-old Mr. Brody Miller. But let me say this. There is a central narrative around LSU media from multitudes of individuals about this quote-unquote Ed Orgeron is under so much pressure. Ed Orgeron is probably more than likely going to be fired. Brody Miller wrote an article where he talked to he wrote an article for The Athletic that was published a couple days ago. And it talked about, well, a multitude of things it talked about. But the central theme was about Ed Orgeron having a lot of pressure and being in trouble, so to speak. Let me say this. In the article, Mr. Brody Miller alleges that him and or some people from The Athletic spoke with an SEC assistant about the current state of LSU and Ed Orgeron. In that conversation, the SEC assistant, see, everybody wants to get mad at this SEC assistant, but we're not going to. Here's why. Stand by. This SEC assistant says that Ed Orgeron knows enough to get LSU in trouble. Let me say this very, very, very quickly for everybody that will listen, because I know that on the Saturday morning shows, everyone likes to listen later. You freaking Rudy Poos. In 2019, that man knew enough to beat your candy asses. In 2019, he knew to go get a guy by the name of Joe Brady. In 18, he saw the talent in a guy named Joe Burrow. He knows enough to get himself in trouble, but it's funny, he also knows enough to kick your candy ass. There's only one coach, only one in the SEC that not only has the right, but even the ability to talk shit about Ed Orgeron. Only one. And some consider him as the greatest college football coach of all time. So let's let that be known. Dan Mullen and every Florida assistant. Jimbo Fisher, since you've been in the SEC, and all your Rudy Poo's assistants, and Damian Craig that you still have lying around, the cesspool that's known as Damian Craig. Auburn has a new head coach. Tennessee has a new head coach. Dan Mullen and Ed Orgeron are actually pretty close, along with Ed Orgeron and Lane Kiffin. So Mike Leach didn't say it. We kind of know that. Mike Leach isn't going to talk shit about another head coach. So who said it? And here's another question. What are you doing asking another SEC assistant as an LSU beat writer about what you think about Ed Orgeron? Why? Because one of two reasons. Number one, either you're wanting to ask this coach so you can write a negative article about LSU and Ed Orgeron, or you just so happen to stumble upon it. But you just don't happen to stumble upon asking an SEC assistant what they think about Ed Orgeron. Because the truth is, the absolute truth, how many SEC schools in the last 5 to 7 years have won national championships? Because there's only 2 schools, and there's only 2 coaches that have done that. We want to talk about the 5-5. We want to talk about Bo Pelini. I get it. But we need to take a step back and understand this. When you've made the statement, because I know every single one of you, I know all 82 of you, and it kind of flusters, so 82, 83, 84 of you that are in here currently live, you have made this statement that the 2019 LSU football team was the greatest college football team of all time. If you're going to make that statement, if you're going to say that team was the best of all time, if you're going to write a Rudy Poo article saying that team was the best of all time, and then, well, LSU did go 5-5 during a global pandemic. This one over here, 2019, holds a shit ton of weight. So you want to come out here and want to find a way to trash Ed Orgeron? You Rudy Poos. You Rudy Poos. When you have individuals that are not from this state, when you have individuals that went to other programs and graduated from other programs, and now they write articles and are beat writers for LSU. They don't want success at your school, so they're going to write shitty-ass articles. I am not an Orgeron homer or defender, but it seems like I am the defender, right? Like it seems as if, for whatever reason, common logic from these people who talk sports has gone out, just gone, I don't even know where, maybe they never even had it, but where's it going? If you have the audacity to say that LSU was the best team in 2019, then you better understand the weight that carries. You better understand the weight that carries. And if you want to say, let's fire that coach, because the truth is he won't let you in because your media credentials to him don't mean two shits. It doesn't mean nothing, you Rudy Poos. I mean, guys, these cocky ass individuals want to write this shit and have never played football a day in their lives. I don't like losing. I don't like going 5-5. But realistically, I know that when you lose as much as LSU did, and you bounce back the way that they have so far with all the talent that's on the roster, guys, LSU's not going 5-5 next year. They're not going 6-6 next year. They're more than likely, at minimum, will probably have 10 wins. That's just the truth. So I can tell you what I know from this, because we've been doing this for a while now. The biggest shows that I've ever had, the most traction that I've ever had on this show, or articles, we don't even write articles, but things that we post, the number one thing that gets traffic, do you want to know what that is? Coaching searches. Last year, we exploded in the month of December during two coordinator coaching searches and hires. Exploded. I mean, it wasn't even close. Go back and look at our numbers in December. These Rudy Poos numbers suck so bad that they got to generate clickbait-ass material to run out here so that they can make their numbers. They make shit up. You understand what do you guys and girls understand what I'm telling you? Do you think that this is all real? Because this is not fantasy land. This is not where I can write an article and everything's going to be okay. People respect me because I'm a journalist. Bullshit. It makes me so pissed off. You know, I said I wasn't going to get angry. I'm pissed. But it makes me so angry that I have to. Why is nobody defending Ed Orgeron? Let me ask you this question. Have you guys thought about why I am the only individual that seems to be out there that will defend Ed Orgeron? Again, if things start happening on the field, yeah, we'll talk about it. But we will be a little bit more realistic. But I'm not going to completely hammer a coach that had all those losses after what he did in 2019 during a global pandemic. If you're going to freak out about a global not freak out. If you're going to take very seriously what you should, a global pandemic, then you should take serious the repercussions and the things that happened behind it for your school, especially when you didn't graduate there and had no affinity for LSU. Stop trashing it. Stop trashing it. Because as much as you want to run out there and trash Ed Orgeron for what seems to me feels like I don't know how many times, but it feels like it's every freaking week. Now, me coming out here and blasting Brody Miller for that Rudy Poo ass article he wrote is going to gain his article traction. It will. I know that it will. And again, I don't think Brody Miller's a bad guy. I said that in the beginning. But I will say, if you're going to attack Ed Orgeron, if you're going to get a sit down with Ed Orgeron, and you're going to talk to other SEC coaches that I'm just going to say this, they don't have the Rudy Poo right to talk shit about Ed Orgeron when Ed's beating the dog shit out of them. Guys, 5-5, and Ed Orgeron still has the right to tell Kirby Smart to STTTB or DB, STTDB, because Kirby Smart is 0-2 against Ed Orgeron. In LSU's worst season in a long time, Dan Mullen could not beat LSU and Ed Orgeron. That the greatest, what people are calling the greatest Texas A&M team that they've had in the last 30 years, the greatest that they've had in the last 30 years, barely beat LSU at home after having 2 weeks of not having games. And this was LSU's worst season. The head coach prodigy, the man that everybody wants, Lane Kiffin, couldn't outduel Ed Orgeron. We had on Warren Sapp yesterday, and he talked about Coach O is one of the best X's and O's coaches that he's ever been around. And trust me, listening to Warren Sapp and how he talked X's and O's with us this past week, guys, you can't be in coaching as long as Ed Orgeron has been and not understand the X's and O's. But I asked Warren Sapp, Warren, what was the one thing that Ed Orgeron said the most? He would walk in there and say, which one of you hasn't watched film? Unreal. Stephen Miller says, morning, bud. What's good? Good morning, sir. David says, preach it, Blake. Corey says, morning, Mac action, Stephen O. Or Steve-O. DMT says, if I asked O to draw up a defense that could defend the top 5 route concepts from the Joe Brady offense, do you think he could do it? Yes, I think he can, and that should end all this O is dumb talk. O is not dumb. That's why this Rudy Poo ass Ed Orgeron is not a dumb coach. It was so crazy to me. I'm going to end the conversation. Joe Brady, Joe Burrow, and by the way, that defense in 19 that turned it on at the last part of the season, you remember that? Remember when the defense played really good at the last part of the season? He kept Dave Aranda. You wanted this man to be the we just act as if he just doesn't know anything. It's the stupidest argument. It is these. You know why they call Ed dumb? This is why they call Ed dumb. It's because he doesn't sound like everybody else. He doesn't look like everybody else. And it's because he's from the state of Louisiana. And we defend these Rudy Poo ass articles. They're talking about you. These guys that graduated from Texas and are now beat writers for LSU, they're talking about your culture. They're talking about you. If you think that they think about that about Ed Orgeron, what do they think about you? What do they think about your wife? What do they think about your kids? They don't. They think the same thing. DMT says almost all media this era makes stuff up. That's another point I didn't even talk about. I'm not going to say that his sources were made up. I even though I may believe it. An SEC assistant. So then what you're telling me is that you guys went out there and asked an SEC coach what you think about Ed Orgeron. If that wasn't the number one question that you asked, then you should give context that came up in talking. What do you need to reach out to other SEC coaches for any Rudy Poo way? You want a high standard of performance? You want LSU to be a high standard of performance? Some of you need to fall in line a little bit. And I'm not going to say defend LSU because that says, well, Blake will always be an LSU homer. Guys, listen to me in a post-game show. I'm not an LSU homer. I'm a freaking realist. Yes, we We all love LSU. Yes, everybody that covers LSU from a radio show or podcast or whatever does not have the right to say that they're not a homer because you're talking about LSU. You're not, no. So part of you is going to defend LSU. Jeff sent us some stars via the Facebook. Jeff, I greatly appreciate that, sir. Derek Street says, do you smell what the Blake is cooking? I appreciate that. I appreciate that. John, our good friend John Ditch says, good morning, everyone. Good morning, John. Lane Smith says, hashtag Ask Blake. The people dogging Orgeron are the same people that give Miles no credit for the 07 championship because it was Saban's players. Orgeron is good and getting better. He's just not a well-known name. I think Ed Orgeron's a pretty well-known guy. I mean, that's what I believe. Josh Bedwell, what's up, Josh? He says, is this about a certain ESPN BR guy? No, to rephrase and to refresh, this is about the article from Brody Miller. Again, let me say this I've said it multiple times already. I'm going to say it again. This is not me taking a shot at Brody Miller. I think he's a good dude, but the article and what you're trying to say, the 23-year-old known as Brody Miller or 24-year-old known as Brody Miller, however old he is, okay, you're going to go out there and write an article. I don't know how you don't take that as a hit piece. In the article, it said something to the effect that, what was it? Ed owes just enough to get his ass in trouble. Well, he knew just enough to beat the dog manure out of everybody. He should, in turn, because he was here in 2016 and was hired in 2016 and ran that season, every one of those players were his and that he recruited. It didn't fall apart because he was there. I'm going to count them as his players. He got Joe Burrow. He got Joe Brady. You better give him freaking credit. You better give him credit. I mean, come on, man. Come on. What would Dabo Swinney have done after his first national title if the ACC wasn't so bad? Because he still had an ACC loss. Guys, the ACC is trash water. It's dookie water. The toughest games that they were playing was South Carolina. South Carolina. Come on, man. Kenny says James Franklin at Penn State had a 4-5 record in 20. I guess he is a horrible coach. Well, they don't, just to tell you the truth, they don't like him. They don't like him at all. DMT says, and both of them were blowouts. Yeah, both of them were blowouts. Tasha Thibodeau from the Real LSU Nation. Good morning, Tasha. DMT says they are running with mainstream narratives. You don't accept that from people around the program. No, you don't, because nobody else does. Nobody else does. And I think that that's the point that I just don't understand. Guys, there's an article out there trashing Ed Orgeron, and it's like we're supposed to be okay with it, right? Like I'm supposed to be okay with a Rudy Poo-ass article trashing my head coach after, and what's crazy is after, again, that 2019, if the words come out of your mouth, LSU's team in 2019 was the best ever. That holds some weight, especially from the head coach that brought him there. I guess we forgot about all the 4th and 1s. I guess we forgot about all of the calls that Ed Orgeron had to make and has made. Has he made mistakes? Absolutely. Absolutely. Nick Saban also aligned for a 59-yard field goal, and what's it, Davis from Auburn took it to the house, and they lost. Guys, coaches don't always make the best decisions. That is coaching. But he sure as shit did something very well in 19. Very well. Unreal, bro. Unreal. Let's see here. Tasha Thibodeau sent us some stars. I appreciate that. Chelsea Roberts. Good morning, Chelsea. She says, Blake bringing the truth today. We're trying. Aaron Fielder says LSU probably won't ever find a coach like Coach O again. The dude bleeds purple and gold, and you would have to kick him out for him to leave. I love Coach O, and he is going to get the respect he deserves. Yeah, that's what the crazy. Come here, buddy. Come here. Hey, come here. Oh, it's my little co-host. Hey, did you have breakfast? What did you eat? Pancakes?
Yes.
Yes. Did you like them? Yes. Can I have a kiss? Ma. Say go Tigers.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, say go Tigers. All right. Let's see here. Mark Allen says, if Coach O is dumb, then I want to be dumb like him. That dude has Brinks trucks at his house. You know, that's another thing. That's another crazy thing. That's true. It's true. Unreal, bro. Phil Tittle says, Edo may not be a Rhodes Scholar, but he is an excellent football coach. He knows football. He knows players. He knows coaches when he actually interviews them. Yeah, guys, he's probably one of the best recruiters in the nation. LSU at minimum, in my opinion, because I know that we are starting to branch nationally to an extent. They will talk Rudy Poo about I'm a homer and all that kind of stuff, but someone argue with me that LSU's not going to have 10 wins next year. If LSU only has 9 wins next season, it's because a lot of bad things happened. It's not going to happen. I'm just telling you, it's not going to happen. Again, unless some bad things happen. What's up, KJG? In the house. Who says, morning, Blake. Good morning, sir. Jeffrey says, preach to them Rudy Poos. We're trying. Kenny says, Warren Sapp played for Coach O. Moscona and Miller did not. Therefore, I will take Sapp's word over those two. Yeah, you should. You know, the funny thing about, you know, the real thing that I'm glad Warren talked about Wednesday was, again, there's this narrative that Ed Orgeron is not an X's and O's guy. Well, let me ask you this question. How in the dog shit do you believe that that's even close to being true? Have you been on the whiteboard with him? Well, no, but we know people that have, and they say they're trash. Well, the people that you talk to are no longer at LSU. Warren Sapp, who quite honestly, and we go check the stuff that what he talks about, knows D-line. Who in the Rudy Poo hell do you think he learned it from? The guy that saw a kid at tight end and brought him over to the D-line and made him into what he was. That's what Warren Sapp said. I'm quoting, one of the best X's and O's coaches I've ever been around. Knows more offense. He's forgot more offense than some offensive coordinators. You're not in this game as long as you are and not know the game of football. What is he, just an idiot? It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. It's an easy cop-out for guys who never played football before to say that Ed Orgeron's not an X's and O's guy. That's what the shitty part about all this is. Guys that talk about their high school, guys that never played football, want to talk about X's and O's, and then when they go on the air, or they go on their podcast, or they go on someone else's show, they say, I'm not an X's and O's guy. Well, what the hell are you talking about? You actually got to know the game to talk about the game. Unreal. And the crazy thing is, here's the crazy thing. Everybody that's on Twitter, listen to this. This is what happens when I get off the show. You won't believe it. It's freaking crazy. Twitter Periscope has an app where you can see everybody that watched your show. Right? I can see that you're watching our shows, bro. I know that you click in there every day. Sorry about you. I know you love me. And you love to hate me. And here's another thing. They call this one of them called me a little podcast guy. Please. Corey says, preach. DMT says, Blake, there will be a lot of retractions, backtracking, and bandwagoning, jumping coming this fall. You just watch. They will act like they never said that. Oh, no, they won't. No, they won't. I mean, in the simple, they didn't do it in 19. They act like nothing happened. We've seen that. We've seen that play out. That's already happened. Chris says, best ever 2019, 2021. We come in, we'll see you in UCLA. I agree with that. Kenny says, folks like Miller Moscona and Spicy Richard, my neighbor, hate Orgeron because Tom Herman wasn't hired, which is the stupidest thing ever. They hate Orgeron because of Herman, but yet Ed Orgeron is more accomplished than, wait for it, Tom Herman. What they don't like is that there's not an elitist, a preppy boy in that role. We got a guy from the Bayou who's recruiting his ass off. Guys, what the truth is that we had 2 true freshman quarterbacks last year play some really good football. They were dealt a bad hand, but they've rebuilt it. Here's the crazy thing. And even the players that played for Ed Orgeron last year, they didn't have to come back, and they did. Your entire O-line and D-line returned. You got guys returning left and right. The only guys that didn't return is because guys are going in the NFL. Let's call a spade a spade. What guys left that shouldn't have? All right, a couple more. We're going to get out of here. We're going to call it early today. Carl Dunn says the real star of the show. I'm talking about Ben Ruffino. That is true. DMT says, don't fit the narrative, Blake, and so they'll gloss over it, just like they glossed over Brian Kelly's 4-8 season. O can never go 4-8 and still have a job. Somehow Brian still made the top 10 coaches list. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You know, like Brian Kelly has made multiple playoffs, and look, you guys can trash me about this. Brian Kelly is a damn good football coach. I mean, he's a damn good football coach. He just gets disrespected. He goes 4-8. The next year, they're literally knocking on the door of the playoffs. The next year, they get in the playoff. And play Alabama tougher than anybody else has. Carl Dunn says, let's go. So, look, I am just sick and tired, like legitimately sick and tired of people trashing O. It's unreal. Adam Contreras says, it's possible to be the 8th seed this week. That's true. From the way we started, that's something. That is true. Starting 1-8. You know, Stephen Miller, our good friend Stephen Miller, posted the same thing last night on Twitter. I mean, that's crazy, man. You know, it's crazy. I hope. Let's just hope that they win today. They need to win today. All right, guys. You know what? We're gonna call it a show for this morning. We got some daddy duties we need to go ahead and take care of around here. But guys, we will see y'all again Monday evening. Can't wait to see you guys then. We'll talk to y'all soon. Y'all have a good day.